In a bustling airport, filled with the sounds of footsteps, announcements, and the hum of excitement, a father and his 24-year-old son were preparing to board a plane. The father, a man in his late 50s with a kind face lined with years of wisdom, gently guided his son towards the gate. The young man, whose eyes sparkled with childlike wonder, gripped his father's hand tightly, his heart racing with anticipation. As they settled into their seats on the plane, the son, who had never been on an airplane before, could hardly contain his excitement. His eyes darted around the cabin, taking in every detail. When the plane began to taxi down the runway, he leaned towards the window, his breath catching as the aircraft lifted off the ground. "Dad, look!" the young man shouted with pure joy, pressing his face against the window. "The houses are moving. They're going behind us." His father, sitting beside him, smiled warmly. He had waited for this moment for many years, knowing how much it meant to his son. "Yes, son," he replied softly. "They're moving behind us." Across the aisle, a young couple in their early 30s exchanged glances. They had noticed the young man's exuberance and couldn't help but smile at first. But as the flight continued, the boys' excitement grew more intense, and their smiles began to fade. They watched him with a mix of curiosity and pity, wondering why a grown man would act in such a childish manner. As the plane ascended higher, the son became even more animated. "Dad, look at the cars. They look so tiny from up here," he exclaimed, his voice filled with awe. He pointed out of the window, his eyes wide with amazement. The couple across the aisle began to feel uncomfortable. They whispered to each other, their annoyance growing with each passing minute. "Why is he acting like this?" the woman asked, her voice tinged with irritation. "It's like he's never seen anything before." The man nodded in agreement, casting a judgmental glance towards the young man. "It's strange," he muttered. "At his age, he should be more mature." Just as they were beginning to lose their patience, the plane soared above the clouds. The young man's excitement reached a fever pitch as he gazed out of the window. "Dad, look, the clouds are running with us," he cried out, his voice filled with sheer delight. The couple could no longer contain their frustration. The woman leaned over and addressed the father, her tone sharp. "Sir, why don't you take your son to see a good doctor? It's clear that something is not right with him." The father turned to face the couple, his kind eyes meeting theirs. He paused for a moment, his smile never wavering. "We just came from the hospital," he said gently. "You see, my son was blind from birth. Today is the first day he can see." The couple's faces flushed with embarrassment. Their harsh judgment melted away, replaced by a deep sense of shame. They realized that they had been quick to judge without understanding the situation. The woman's eyes softened, and she stammered, We had no idea. We're so sorry." The father nodded, still smiling. "It's okay," he replied, his voice full of understanding. "Things aren't always what they appear to be. Everyone has their own story, and it's easy to misjudge others when we don't know what they've been through." The young man, oblivious to the conversation, continued to marvel at the view outside the window, his heart filled with happiness. For him, it was the most beautiful day of his life, a day he had dreamed of for as long as he could remember. As the plane continued its journey through the sky, the couple sat in silence, reflecting on the lesson they had just learned. They watched the young man with new eyes, no longer seeing him as someone to be pitied, but as someone who had just experienced the miracle of sight for the first time. And so, the flight continued, with the young man gazing out of the window, his heart filled with wonder. The couple, now more aware of the stories that lie behind every face, carried with them a newfound sense of humility and compassion, understanding that the reality of someone's situation may be far more astonishing than it first appears.